All right, so the future value of a loan would be the amount you borrowed plus the interest. All right, so that's what we talked about last class period. Now remember the formula for future value is this: A equals P times 1 plus RT. And you have to use that on your test today. So future value A would be the principal. Now remember the principal means the same thing as the present value. Present value. What does R stand for? The rate. And then T stands for time. And time must be in what unit? Years. So that's why today, if it was in months, you had to divide by 12. If it was in days, you had to divide by 365. Okay? All right, so let's look at this problem. You want to find the future value. I'm sorry, we're going to do number 16. So number 16, you're told this. You're told that the present value or the principal is $3,000, and you're told that the future value A, the future value is $3,180. Now what that means is this. Remember what that future value means? It means that's the total amount you end up paying. So do y'all understand that this amount also includes the $3,000? So what does the 180 represent? The interest. Okay, the interest. Now we're going to look at this in two different ways. And you could do it two different ways. Does not matter. One of the two different ways. Okay. And the other one is that you're told that the time here is what, 1 year? Okay. Now, think about what we're about to discuss very carefully. What are the sheets? Yeah, the one that was that I emailed y'all.
8.3.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Okay. Okay, so in number 16, you want to find the interest rate that will give you a future value of 3,180, knowing that the present value, your principal is $3,000 and your time is 1 year. So you're trying to find R. Okay? Now I'm going to do it two different ways. I'm going to do it first of all using the future value formula, and then I'm going to talk about it in a different way. And you could do it also that way. So let's use the formula first. All right, so here's your formula. And all we're going to do, just like you did in the previous course, algebra, was you're going to substitute. What is A in this case? 3,180, right? Equals P. What's P in this case? 3,000. Times, in parentheses, 1 plus R, which is what I'm trying to find. So I'm going to leave R as R, times T. But what's T? 1. So do y'all agree that RT, this right here, RT would be 1 times R, which is just R. Okay, so that's R. So that's where I'm at. Now, one of the things you learned in a previous course was the idea of distributive property. So I'm going to distribute this because remember this says whatever's inside this parentheses I've got to multiply by 3,000. So I'm going to use the distributive property. So this becomes 3,180 equals, what's 3,000 times 1? 3,000. Plus, and what's 3,000 times R? 3,000 R. All right, so that's where I'm at. So I use the distributive property. Okay, now listen carefully to this. You got to remember some things from a previous course when solving linear equations. I need to get the term that has the variable in it, which is this one, by itself. So I need to get rid of this 3,000. Do you remember what y'all did? Did you add 3,000 or did you subtract 3,000?
Cross out.
Don't say cross out. Did you add 3,000 or did you subtract 3,000?
Subtract. Move it on the right.
You subtract 3,000 because adding 3,000 is not going to help, because if I add 3,000 to both sides, 3,000 plus 3,000 is 6,000. I want this to be a 0, so I got to do what? Subtract 3,000 from both sides. But what is 3,180 minus 3,000? 180. Now we talked about that before we started this. We talked about that. What does that $180 represent? The interest. It represents the interest. So we're about to get to a situation where you could, instead of starting out with the formula, you could have done something different. And that's what this is about to represent. So that 180 represents, and then 3,000 minus 3,000 is 0. Don't say cross out, say 0. 3,000 minus 3,000 is 0. 0 plus 3,000R is 3,000R. Okay? Now, remember, the formula for interest is this. Interest equals what? PRT, principal times rate times time. Interest is principal times rate times time. Well, what does that 180 represent? Interest. What does that 3,000 represent? Principal. What does R represent? The rate. And notice you don't see a number here, but there is a time. What's that time in this problem? 1. Isn't this right here just this? So what I'm saying is that to answer this question, find R, you did not have to start with this. You could have used this right away. It makes things a lot easier. Because if you're given the principal and the future value, how can you find the interest? If you're given the principal and the future value, how can you find the interest that you ended up paying? You subtract these. What's 3,180 minus 3,000? What is 3,180 minus 3,000? 180. That's what this is. So 180 equals the principal. What's the principal? 3,000 times the rate, which is what you're trying to find, times t. And what's t? 1. And that's what this is. So in these problems, you can go directly to this. You just got to find the interest, but that's easy. It's just a subtraction idea. Okay, so let's continue with this. All right, now, so I'm at this point. 180 equals 3,000 R. And how to get R by itself? Divide both sides by 3,000. So on your calculator, go and use your calculator now. What is 180 divided by 3,000? 180 divided by 3,000. So on your calculator, when you do 180 divided by 3,000, I get 0.06. Is that what y'all got? And 0.06 equals, now remember, 3,000 divided by 3,000, that's 1. 1 times R is R. And you got R by itself. But you got to write the rate as a percent. So what's this as a percent? 6%. So there's your answer. All right, 6%. So when you do, let's say 18 then, let's look at 18. And let's think about 18 in an easier format that you can understand. So in 18, you have that the principal is $10,000, so the present value is $10,000. The future value is $14,060, and the time is 2 years. And you want to find R. You want to find R. Don't use the complicated formula to do this. Don't do what we just did. I want you to think about it in a simpler way. So the question is, if I want to find R, the rate, could I just use this formula because there's an R here? Why can't I go directly to this formula? Because if you look at the problem, you're given A, P, T. You're not given an I, you're not given interest, but there's an interest here. Why is it I can still use this formula? Yeah, because you can find the interest from these two. So interest would be the future value, subtract the principal, the present value. So in your calculator, what is 14,060 subtract 10,000? 4,060, right? So that's the interest that you end up paying. Now the question becomes, what is the rate that the interest rate that you end up paying? So let's use the formula. So interest equals principal times rate times time. What's the interest? 4,000 equals the principal. What's the principal? 10,000 times the rate, which is what I'm trying to find. So I'm gonna put that variable at the end. What's the time? 2. So do y'all agree that PRT would be 10,000 times 2 times R? And then what's 10,000 times 2? 20,000, 20,000, is that right? Times R? All right, so that's where I'm at. Now you got to get R by itself. So what's the next step? No, not subtract. You're multiplying. You got to get R by itself. What's the opposite of multiplication? Division. So what's the next step? Divide both sides by 20,000. All right, and then the 20,000 is divide out here. You're left with 1. So use your calculator. What is 4,060 divided by 20,000? Okay, this is what I got, 0.203. Write that as a percent. What's the answer? 20.3%. That's the answer. I'm trying to make this not so white, as you can barely see it. I'm going to change, I've got to change rooms. Okay. All right. So any question on 18? All right. So notice this is a lot easier to use than this one. Okay. All right. So let's do, all right, let's do 20. Number 20. Okay, number 20. Suppose you're told that the principal is $1,700. The future value is $1,820, and the time is 6 months. Our time is 6 months. All right, so time is 6 months. So let's find the interest rate. So interest equals principal times rate times time. Interest equals principal times rate times time. What's the interest in this case? How do you find the interest? Yes, you're going to say 1820 minus $1,700, and you'll get something like $120. So that goes here, $120 equals, what's the principal, what's the present value? 1,700 times the rate, which is what I'm trying to find, times the time, which is 6 months. But remember, time must be in years. So I can't just put 6. If I just put 6, that means 6 years. But that's not 6 years, that's 6 months. So I got divided by 12 times T. I'm sorry, not T, times what? R. Okay, so what is 12? That's 1,700. What is 1,700 times 6 divided by 12? What y'all get on your calculator? So 1,700 times 6 divided by 12. 850? All right, so that's where I'm at. So I have 120 equals 850 R. So what's the next step? Divide both sides by 850. So the 850s divide out. 850 divided by 850 is 1. 1 times R is R. All right, on your calculator, what is 120 divided by 850? Now this is what I get. I get 0.141176 and so on. Now remember, the direction says this, and we talked about this last class period. It says round nearest tenth of a percent. Round nearest tenth of a percent. So what is it I've got to do first before I round off? Yeah, rewrite it as a percent first. So I'm going to move the decimal point 2 places to the right. So now I have something like this, 14.1176 and so on. So nearest tenth of a percent is what it says. So once you move it 2 places to the right, then this is now my tenths place. But you got to look at this value. So since this is less than 5, the 1 stays 1 or becomes 2? Stays 1. So what's the answer? 14.1%. Okay. So any questions? All right. So I would use, to find the rate, I would use the interest equals principal times rate times time formula because it's easy to find the interest. You subtract the present value from the future value. All right. Now let's look at this one. All right. Now in 22, you're asked this. So let's think about this. If there's an easier way to do this without using the future value formula. So here's 22. It's asking you this. You're told this time that the future value is 6,000. And you're told that the rate is 8% and that the time is 2 years. Okay? So you're told that the future value is $6,000, the rate is 8%, and the time is 2 years. And the question is, what is the present value? What is the principal? What amount did you borrow so that way in 2 years, at that interest rate, you owe $6,000 altogether? That's a question. All right, now let's go ahead and think about this in terms of the formula. Let's do that first. So remember, the future value formula is this. A equals P times 1 plus RT. All right, so that's the future value formula. And remember, you know what A is. What's A in this case? 6,000. You don't know P, that's what you're trying to find. So I'm going to rewrite this as P. I'm going to leave it as P times 1 plus R. What's R in this case? 0.08 times T. What's T in this case? 2. So that's where I'm at. Okay? Don't make this thing difficult. Now, remember the difference between this that you see and the one we did earlier. So I'm going to compare those two. See the one I did earlier right here? Look at those two. So this one and this one. Here I distributed because the variable I was looking for, the variable I was interested in, was inside the parentheses. You saw that? So I had to distribute. Here, though, the inside the parentheses, do you see any variables? The variables on the outside of the parentheses. So I would approach this one differently than this one. Don't distribute. Don't do that. Although you could, but you would have two terms with a P in it. Don't do that. The next step you want to do here is this. Find out what the parentheses is. What's 1 plus 0.08 times 2 in your calculator? Go ahead and do that. 1 plus 0.08 times 2. I got 1.16. Is that what y'all got? Is that what y'all got? Yes or no? Okay. And so notice though that that's times P. So I'll put P at the end of that term. And then just like before, how do you get P by itself? Divide. And you're done. You just got to use your calculator to figure out what that is. So 1.16 divided by 1.16 is 1. 1 times P is P. And on your calculator, what is 6,000 divided by 1.16? Now remember, round to the nearest cent. You're dealing with money. P is money. So this is, you're not finding the rate. You're told the rate. So don't move the decimal point 2 places to the right. You talking about money here. This is now your principal, the present value. So how would you round this off if you look at this? $5,172, and tell me what else you would write. Come on, people. How? Thank you. 41 cents. $5,072.41. All right, so that's number 22. There is no other way to do this, like we did in the previous problem, where you subtracted, found the interest, and then you use that interest formula. You have to do that, but it's not difficult. It can easily be done. All right, let's look at 24. Okay, 24, you're told that the future value is $16,000. The rate is 11.5%, and the time is 5 years. All right, time is 5 years. Okay, so what form are you going to use? What formula will you use? Times 1 plus RT. And now you substitute. So A is what? 16,000 equals P, which is what I'm trying to find, times 1 plus R. What's the rate? 0.115 times T. What's T? 5. All right, now what's the next step? I'm trying to get P by itself now. I'm trying to get this by itself. So what's the next step? Do what's inside the parentheses. So inside the parentheses, I have 1 plus 0.115 times 5. So 1 plus 0.115 times 5. And I get 1.575. So this becomes 16,000 rather, equals 1.575 P. That's what I get. What's the next step? Divide both sides by, 1.575. And so P equals, all right, 16,000 divided by 1.575. And this is what I see. I see this number right here. What do I write? $10,158 and 73 cents. Okay. All right. Now let's look at number 26. Okay, 26. All right, this time you have A equals 2,000. So the future value is $2,000. The rate is 12.6%. And the time is 8 months. And you want to find the present value. You want to find the principal. Okay, what form are you going to use? A equals P times 1 plus RT. So now you're going to substitute. What's A in this case? 2,000 equals P, which is what I'm trying to find, times 1 plus R. What's R as a decimal? 0.126 times the time, which is 8 months. So is this correct how I have it written? No, because if you leave it like that, that means 8 years. So I've got to divide by 12. All right, now let's figure out what this is on the calculator right here. So 1, if you do this correctly, you should get 1 plus 0.126 times 8 divided by 12. You should get 1.084. Make sure that's what you got. Okay, what's the next step? Divide both sides by 1.084. So 1.04 divided by 1.084 is 1. 1 times P is P. So what is the present value on your calculator? Now this is what I got. I got 2,000 divided by 1.084. All right, now this is what I see. I see this. All right, that's what I see. So what would you write though as the answer? Yeah, so it's $1,845.02. Because remember, when you talk about money, you round to the nearest cent, so that's a hundredth place. But then you got to figure out, well, this number is the digit next to it on the right, in the thousandths place. It's 5 or big, you got to add 1 here. So that would be $1,845.02. Okay? All right, now that takes care of this section. Now this section dealt with simple interest and future value using the idea of simple interest. Now we're going to look at compounded interest. All right, but let me give you the worksheet that goes with this.